Now it's time to move on to our railroad network. To link this up nicely to the village, I whipped up a station and a platform and included another water tower close by to make sure our trains have plenty of access to water. That is what steam trains run on after all. I added in some decorations, the beginnings of a very long track, and incorporated a classic railroad tunnel as a finishing touch. Obviously, I had to build a train to ride these tracks, so I built a little steam train. Now, since this is all survival friendly and on a relatively small scale, this was quite a challenge, but I'm really happy with how this turned out. I added the finer details, including the various stacks and domes on top, and the pilot, which is often known as a cowcatcher, at the front, before moving back to build the cab. After making lots of tweaks to the front of the train, I built a coal cart to follow closely behind the cab, ready to fuel it up, and then I built some carriages for passengers behind to finish this first train up. Since I'm building such a huge railroad, I really had to build another train to go round it. I copied the same design for the front, but this time designing the carriages for transporting materials and goods rather than passengers. You'll notice the gold and coal in the back of the carriages, which have been transported from the huge mines that we'll be tackling shortly. Before we move on to the mines though, we have an enormous railroad to tackle. And of course, rather than making this easy for myself, I plotted out a route that winds around the whole canyon, making twists and turns and taking diagonal routes across the landscape. It literally took hours for Steph and I to plot out this route, but it was definitely worth it. The whole canyon has been brought to life. Now, since this track is so expansive and we have 2 trains heading around it, I had to incorporate another station with a little water stop to get our trains more water, since early steam trains would need to stop for more water every couple of hours depending on their journey and load. To support our huge railroad, I created a trestle bridge, inspired by the Goat Canyon Trestle in California. Timber trestle bridges not only have an iconic look, but they were usually seen as a more temporary structure, which is why I chose to use them here. I really wanted this canyon to seem as though it is in its prime, bustling with new activity in the USW's own mini gold rush period. Trestle bridges are actually very strong, which is why similar designs have been used for wooden roller coasters over the years. Luckily, I was able to create a more modular trestle bridge design to support the railroad, although I did have to manually build the corner pieces, which took quite a long time, but it was definitely worth investing the time because these bridges really elevate the landscape to a whole new level. And after the painstaking process of finalising the trestle bridge design around the entire railroad, it's time to move on from our train network and head to the mines.